What do we want? PG out. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
PG out.
When do we want it?
Now.
This commission has proven it is not a watchdog for the public, but a lapdog for corporate CEOs. PG&E has a long history of injuring workers, the public, and the environment, including lost plutonium, toxic waste dumping, diverting maintenance funds into profits, and on and on and on. People have been dying because of this. Now the smart meter fiasco. And you keep letting them get away with it. Eliminating, everyone paid for the utility to acquire smart meters, and now we're being charged again for getting back analog meters and meter readers we've also already paid for years ago. Eliminating meter readers endangers our neighborhoods because they know how to recognize early warning signs of gas leaks like the one in San Bruno. Smart meters cause house fires, injuries, and toxic evictions. Charging people to protect themselves from harm is a protection racket. Smart meters aggravate existing medical conditions, and it's a violation of the ADA to charge people with disabilities extra for essential services. The meters also mine personal data without permission, which are acts of illegal search and seizure. It's illegal to charge a fee to protect one's constitutional rights. Do your job and serve the public. Return all analog meters free and on demand. Refund all opt-out extortion fees that have already been paid. Pay reparations to all who have been injured, displaced, or otherwise harmed by these meters. And revoke PG&E's corporate charter. Seize its infrastructure and turn it over to the public. If you do not do right by the people, then this commission must be disbanded.
My name is Charles Benster. I'm a member of California Alliance for Retired Americans and Seniors in Disability Action. I've spoken here quite a few times in regards to PG&E's tactics to try to gain money back from the public for mistakes they made. But we have to remember that, you know, PG&E, when they put in the smart meters, it cost over $2 billion to put in the smart meters in this state, and they are guaranteed by charter 10.35% return on every dollar invested in capital. So that means they made over $200 million off the installation of the smart meters. And they laid off thousands of workers who read the meters before that. Another thing, in 2001, PG&E declared bankruptcy because they were playing craps with Enron. They then took the $2 billion in cash reserves they had and left the state of California because they didn't want that money to be attacked. They stayed out until after 9/11. They came back whistling, and they got the PUC to raise the electricity rates to recoup the money that they had lost in the Enron game. So this is, you know, they're shameless. They don't care. What we need is, we need a nationalized control of industry, of the energy industry, and no compensation. PG&E has made billions and billions of dollars off the public in this state. No compensation and under workers' control. That's the only way forward.
I'm Josh Hart, director and founder of StopSmartMeters.org. We're here today to, as Steve said, demand an end to Peevey on this commission. It's time for him to go golfing. He is no longer responsible for the health and safety of the people of California. The smart meter and the smart grid has been a disaster for human health and safety. Under a judge's order, PG&E admitted that more than 190,000 pulses of radiation come out of these meters every day. This is radiation that the World Health Organization says is a Class 2B human carcinogen. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of house fires and structure fires, including a fire in 2010 where a man named Larry Nickel perished in his house in Vacaville the day after a smart meter was installed at his house. The Public Utilities Commission has failed to investigate these deaths and these injuries, just like they failed to properly regulate PG&E in the pipeline disaster that killed so many people in San Bruno and destroyed a neighborhood. There's a pattern here. The smart grid is like a combination of the Enron scandal in San Bruno. It's a calculated taking of public funding by corporations that is also an ongoing and increasing safety risk, as these unstable and unpredictable electronic devices mounted on our homes are weathered in the sun and the rain and the increased temperatures. We see them failing increasingly, and we see them catching fire, and we see people's houses burning down. The Nevada Public Utilities Commission has started an inquiry into the safety of smart meters, into the fire risk posed by smart meters, but they didn't do this action on their own. They were called upon publicly by the Reno fire chief after a woman, Michelle Sherman, died along with her animals back in last month. And now the Public Utilities Commission is looking into this, is starting an inquiry. It's time the California Public Utilities Commission does the same thing. We've had hundreds of fires here, hundreds of fires and electrical problems here in California. It is not acceptable to keep these dangerous devices on people's homes that unpredictably start fires. The number of emergency responses have gone up since smart meters have been deployed, and we need to put safety first. And it's not going to come from Jerry Brown. It's not going to come from this California Public Utilities Commission. If we're going to have changes, it's going to have to come from the bottom. It's going to have to come from the public. And we're not here to beg the CPUC to make changes. We don't believe that the current CPUC is capable of making changes. We're here to express the truth and to let the public know that it's our responsibility to demand changes and to demand that Governor Brown be removed from office, that Peevey be removed from office. There's a serious likelihood that Peevey could be reappointed for another 6-year term, and this would be an absolute disaster for the health and safety of California. We deserve a system that is safe, that is affordable, a system where landlines are preserved, where people who are suffering from electrosensitivity are listened to and are responded to, rather than ignored and shunned from our communities. We need access for everyone. We need the PUC to follow the Public Utilities Code rather than throw it in the toilet. And we need to stand up for our rights. So thanks all for being here. We can change this. This is an international movement. There's people all over the country, all over the world, who are starting Stop Smart Meters groups, who are having success in spreading awareness about the truth, and who are overcoming these propaganda campaigns that the utility industry is running. The Smart Grid Consumer Collaborative is saying that smart meters are safe, that this is the future, that this is technologically advanced, but we know the truth, that this is an invasive, privacy-violating, fire-starting, and radiation-causing program that is actually a regressive step. It is not progress, it is regress, and we need to call it out for what it is. So thank you all for being here this Thursday morning, and let the Public Utilities Commission, let the public know the truth in there today.
We suspected, and now everyone knows, that behind our backs you collude with those who harm and cheat us. You commissioners know the smart meter program increases energy use, is not cost effective, is technically deficient, contravenes constitutionally protected rights to privacy, markets personal data, causes fire, and sickens the public. Think carefully why you have endorsed this idiocy, enabled this criminal stupidity, because it does not speak well either to your cognitive abilities or your moral fiber. Your chairman's bargain with the devil has ruined his reputation. His legacy is San Bruno and corrupting the CPUC. What motivates the rest of you? Are you so flawed, so cowardly, so beholden to Jerry Brown that you have no pride, not 1 ounce of courage that wills you to do better?
Money talks.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I've been working on these issues, worked on 2 public power campaigns in San Francisco. We've had 2 campaigns so far unsuccessful in Davis and Yolo County in favor of public ownership and democratic control of the utility system. And under the way the California Public Utilities Commission operates, it basically, the way to understand what they do is the 200% rule. If PG&E wants a rate increase of $4 billion, they ask for $8 billion. And that's what they did in the last general rate case, which was decided. They asked for a little over, about $4.5 billion. They got $2.25 billion. And meanwhile, all the, the hundreds and hundreds, there's 800 or 900 secretaries and energy analysts up in this building behind us. But what they basically do is shuffle paper to make the thing look good. It's like a very choreographed kabuki dance. They pretend to regulate, and PG&E pretends to provide good service, and that's how it's done. Now, if you want to know how the commission functions, I can give you an idea. I worked there for 7.5 years in the Office of Ratepayer Advocates. And what's more important is not what they do, but what they don't do. I repeatedly would ask them, I said, well, why do you benchmark rates against other privately owned utilities? Why not look at what the publicly owned utilities charge, where they're not paying $34 million a year to their chief executive? Let me give you some figures. Comparison of typical electric bills: 700 kilowatt hours. The Sacramento Municipal Utility District, $87. PG&E, $150. The difference, $63 a month, $756 a year. Let's look at a supermarket. Typical supermarket, 250,000 kilowatt hours a year. The bill with SMUD is $34,000 a month. PG&E charges $45,000. That's $11,000 more a month. Comes to $132,000 a year for that supermarket. So they have to charge higher prices. They have less to pay their workers, and they actually make less profit. Is it any wonder in Yolo County, when we had a campaign from 2003 to 2006 to take over 72,000 of PG&E's meters, we got a $30,000 campaign contribution from a supermarket in Yolo County that had several supermarkets on the other side of the line in SMUD, and they knew they were losing over $100,000 a year. So it's bad for business. What PG&E does is bad for business. Now, what I'd like to do is give you a little, sort of a short idea of where Mike Peevey comes from. When one commissioner was retired, he said, like Carl Wood, I'm a red diaper baby. Well, you may not know, it probably means his parents were communists or something like that. I never asked him directly, but he knows about people like us, and he chose to go the other way. For a short time, he was the research director of the California Labor Federation, 69, 70, 71. Then he went on to found something called California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance. And what they were trying to do was to site nuclear power plants up and down the coast. And they ran into some thousands of people who were resisting. They took over Diablo Canyon several times. 6,000 people were arrested. This is all forgotten. You're not taught it. Your kids are not taught about it in their school books. So Ralph Nader and a guy named Richard Grossman and some other people came up with a Prop 15, which ran in June 1976. And what it would do is ban the siting of any new nuclear power plants unless you could figure out what to do with the waste. And Mike Peevey at SEEB was the chief opponent. And in his office, back in the late summer of '76, if you look behind his chair, he had a large cartoon of him, of Mike Peevey, delivering a right uppercut to Ralph Nader, because Prop 15 lost by 51 to 49%. But it was so popular that everyone knew they would never cite another new nuclear power plant in California, and they never did. Anyway, so this is, now, what you have to understand is the reason PG&E is so nervous about public power is because they can't make any money off it. And their biggest defeat in history was the creation of the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. They were voted into existence in 1923 by a 7-to-1 margin that June. PG&E fought them in the courts, in PR, for 23 years until they finally took over the poles and wires and built some dams up on the American River. And now, as I just showed, their rates are, SMUD's rates are 25–30% less than PG&E's. SMUD is the leader in California with renewable energy, always has been, and you can read about it in several places. You can find my book, Who Owns the Sun, that I wrote with the late Johnny O'Connor. And but the idea of public ownership is not a new idea in California. In 1922, in November 1922, there was an election, a statewide election, to create a California version of the Ontario hydro system in Ontario, Canada. And what happened was the utilities together, as far as anyone can tell, spent $500,000. Well, California had 1/10 as many people, and a dollar was worth 1/20th what it's worth now. They spent $100 million in today's terms to defeat that. And you can read about it. You won't hear about it in your classes, but you can read about it. Walton Bean, California, an interpretive history. He's a professor. He was a professor at UC Berkeley, so he can't be a complete moron.
I think basically you have a criminal enterprise here running this Public Utilities Commission. Peevey here was a former executive of Southern California Edison, and now he's chair. He's supposed to do oversight on the utilities. What kind of conflict of interest is that? It's a big one. The California working people and the public are not being served by a corrupt commission which is doing damage control for PG&E in Southern California Edison and lying to the people of California. They want the ratepayers to pay for these nuclear plants, San Onofre and Diablo Canyon, where the utilities have lied and should be prosecuted, the executives and the company managers, and put in prison for lying to the people of California and putting their health and safety in danger. You are doing damage control, and Jerry Brown, who's running for governor, has to be put on the spot. Why is he keeping these corrupt officials in charge of the Public Utility Commission? That's a question we have to ask. Jerry Brown is responsible. Now, what we're saying is even whistleblowers at the nuclear plants who've complained about health and safety have been retaliated and fired and blackballed. What has this commission done? The Public Utility Commission. They've covered up for PG&E in Southern California Edison, at Diablo Canyon, with the meters. We're saying that this has to be clean house. Kamala Harris should investigate and prosecute the rigging of judges and the corruption in this commission. You people belong in jail. We need an elected commission from the people of California that's not controlled by the utilities. We need public power in California so that people can have an efficient energy industry instead of an industry that's run for the profit of these corporate executives. That's what we need for the people of California and the workers of California who died because of the criminal activity of these utility corporations, which you people cover for. The judge fixing itself, the judge fixing is a criminal act, yet there's no prosecution. Kamala Harris is missing in action. Where are officials who have to have accountability? You should be out and you should be fired and you should be put in prison, Peevey.
You guys, there's just so many things going on. I mean, it's too late to do anything about the nuclear power, which I was fighting against in the 70s. It's too late to do a lot of stuff, but it's not too late to do something about smart meters. Smart meters, there are people, I'm not going to go through all of the problems. We know the problems, health. I'm a person who had 1 foot of flame coming through the wall of my house from an outlet after the smart meter was put in. The smart meter was replaced. It was a phony smart meter. It was actually another smart meter, and I was sort of deceived. In general, I'm just really, really sick of the deception everywhere. I mean, it's part of our culture, and you're part of our culture. You're probably no worse than the general culture.
An ounce of prevention. I want to address fire and smart meters. The situation, 2 smart meters situated back in the woods from my home. No smoke detectors, no people milling about. And if they catch fire, say in the middle of the night, could set Mill Valley in a blaze with loss of life and loss of property. Mr. Peevey, you have created much misery. There's now EMF refugees wandering for a safe place to live, abandoning their homes that they created. I want my extortion fee back, and I want the monies that I have been paying at the rate of $10 a month for many months, and I want everybody else to receive their money back. You have not fulfilled your assignment to protect the people from greedy, covert, lying utility companies. The scientific data that's about smart meters that have been presented by scientists all over the world is staggering. And you, Mr. Peevey, look stupider with each passing minute. You are thoroughly incapable of handling, regulating anything.
Thank you.
Resign now. We don't want you. We don't need you.
Commissioners, over 4.5 years ago in this room, a concerned public warned against smart meters, smart meter rollout. What was once thought of as a small opposition in California has grown in number across the nation and abroad. 29 world scientists and doctors, authors of the Bioinitiative report, stated in their report, bioeffects can occur from just minutes of exposure to cell towers, Wi-Fi, and utility smart meters that produce whole body exposure. Many of these bioeffects can reasonably presumed to result in adverse health effects if the exposures are prolonged or chronic because they disrupt homeostasis, prevent the body from healing, damage DNA, produce immune system imbalances, metabolic disruption, and lower resilience to disease. We know that children, adolescents, and seniors are more vulnerable to biological harm from utility smart meters, which is reason why I have pleaded with you numerous times to give the option of opt-out to French American International School at 150 Oak Street. And as yet you haven't chosen not to. Why has this been ignored? Could PG&E executive and shareholder profits be more important to you than the health and welfare of our children? I'm asking that phase, IHS, be allowed to opt out and for the removal of the opt-out fees. And I'd like to submit to President Peevey Commission a smart meter wireless radiation comparison. It goes from cell tower to Wi-Fi exposure, laptop, cordless phone, and then we have a smart meter which is the highest exposure of radio frequency radiation. We'll have a copy. Thank you.
I'm a little confused here. Are these the people that we're supposed to talk to about health and safety problems? Okay. No, I think there must be some mistake because we've been coming here for 4 years talking about injuries and deaths caused by smart meters, and nothing's been done about that. And so I think these might be the wrong people to speak to. I mean, I'm not sure how it works around here. Maybe we could shop for a judge who could sort this out for us. I only have probably less than 20 bucks. I don't think that's really enough. Maybe not as much as PG&E has, but oh well. I think today I'm going to address my comments to people who actually give a damn and might do something to fix the situation, at least on this side of the room here. Let's be honest for 1 minute here, folks. The smart grid has been a giant fiasco, wasting taxpayer and ratepayer money causing hundreds of meters to catch on fire and kill people. Most recently, Michelle Sherman, who died from a smart meter fire in Reno, Nevada, and Larry Nickel, who died 4 years ago when smart meters were just beginning to be deployed. These people's lives could have been saved if the people behind me had taken action. Unfortunately, they're dead today. Hundreds of thousands of smart meters have now been recalled in Florida, Saskatchewan, Oregon, Arizona, and it's time that they are recalled in California. These meters have destroyed people's health and quality of life, and the smart grid is essentially a quiet but pervasive surveillance network used by the NSA and passed on to third-party corporations. To prevent consumer desertion from this absolute disaster, the Public Utilities Commission authorized the charging of an extortion fee. Meanwhile, our unelected and rogue commission gives enthusiastic approval to utilities disconnecting customers who pay their entire electricity usage, including myself, who refused to pay the utility extortion fees. And we've been living without electricity now in the Sierra Nevada. We were disconnected in the middle of winter for 7 months by Plumas Sierra Rural Electric Cooperative. This is in direct violation of the Public Utility Code, which I think I just saw being used as toilet paper in the CPUC toilet out here. Business as usual with the Jared Brown crowd is unacceptable. These sleazy mobsters have got to go. Thank you. What we want and what we deserve are a safe and affordable electric utility service that doesn't hurt people and put safety above profits. Pretty certain change is not going to come from these folks. If change is going to come, it's going to come from you guys.
I speak to the audience because I've never seen the CPUC pay attention yet. What I saw after Josh spoke was that the commissioners before us actually focused on the fact that people were at the podium. It takes a public struggle to wake people up. Thanks for that, Josh. As Ralph Nader says, the only safe utility is a public utility with public oversight and scrutiny. We need a public agency to protect us, stopping and preventing toxic wireless radiation, toxic nuclear radiation, gas pipelines that have not been properly maintained, and private corporations allowed to run amok. We need a governor in California to actually do his job and oversee the CPUC. The CPUC, under current undersight, is a money and power pipeline to the rich and does not serve or protect those they are supposed to protect. California is for sale. It's water infrastructure, fuel, fracking, and public-private partnership. It's a fire sale, with fireworks being provided by its exploding smart meters and gas pipelines.
Having just returned from the New York climate convergence, I'm freshly aware that at this crucial time, when we have just a few decades to avert the worst of the catastrophic effects of climate change, how the CPUC regulates monopoly utilities is increasingly critical. That's why the pattern of corruption we've witnessed is even more disastrous. From collusion with PG&E regarding the horrendous disaster at San Bruno, to colluding with PG&E regarding spying on the ratepayers, objecting to forced installation of harmful smart meters, to colluding with Southern California Edison over who pays for their terrible management of San Onofre. The pattern of corruption is clear, but I was still shocked to find out that from a reliable source, a former CPUC Commission president, that as my dear friend and colleague Barbara George was dying, her compensation was deliberately withheld, though people at the commission knew she needed the money for her cancer treatment. After friends and lawmakers intervened, the check was finally released, but Barbara had already died. Today I stand with both the dismayed public and your CPUC staffers who are calling for a commission that they can be proud to work for. Corruption and climate crisis, aging nuclear reactors, hazardous wireless meters, and natural gas lines don't mix.
What do we want?
PV out.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
PV out.
When do we want it?
Now.